Okay, folks. Why don't you come on in and let's kind of get this show on the road. I have turned on the recorder, just so as you know, and so everybody will be. Um, Once we get this recorded, we'll stick it up on YouTube and it'll be there. Um,
And feedback. Last week we were working on announcements, and that was kind of our first big killer that you heard us talk about. And then
okay. Sorry about that. It took me a minute to figure out what was where the feedback was coming from. The When we kind of began thinking about how this course needed to go, we put it in, chopped it up really into three pieces. And the first piece is always the most difficult part, and it's the part that tends to be the biggest struggle with, and that is figuring out what is a legitimate research question and what makes a legitimate research question. And so, that kind of runs itself, because once you come up with an idea and you start to then get into the lit review, you discover very quickly that whatever idea you had, is going to change because of the lit review. Maybe it'll be better defined, maybe it'll be less well defined, maybe, you don't know exactly where a question is going to go until you can identify what do we already know about it, and how are those concepts defined, and how, what kind of information do we have about looking at a particular topic like that. And so the lit review and the research question kind of go, hand in glove for a while until you figure all that out. Now, the second part of the research question and the importance of it is that it has to be supported, bad term, it has to be indicated by something that's already kind of in literature. Now, that can be a lot of things. I mean, that's a real nebulous sort of definition. And so it can be, we know this is a problem. Just because of what's going on in practice, we know something's a problem. And we need to figure out a bit more about it. And, or it can be, okay, well, I know I want to try this. I've heard good things about this, and I want to see if it'll work here or if it'll work under these circumstances. Or sometimes it's just a matter of, okay, let's see if we can figure out, kind of how these two nebulous notions may fit together, or begin to figure out how they fit together. And so you go from a range of a very explicit hypothetical outcome, basically an experiment, well-defined experiment, all the way over to the other end, which is there's something in this setting or this relationship that's just not working. Don't really know what that is, but let's see if we can figure out at least, what the dimensions of it might be, or what the variables involved might be. Because there's always going to be either causal or predictive outcome, or a beginning to a research problem. We're either going to say, okay, let's see if we can predict what will happen if this happens on some particular outcome. Or it can be, I wonder if we did this in school or did this in our institution, would something else happen? Could I predict something else that might happen? Think in terms of admissions or allowing students into different programs or things like that. But you have to have one of those too. You have to have, some sort of notion, okay, well, I think there may be a relationship between a couple of things here, or more than maybe a couple of things maybe. Or I think if I know something, I might be able to predict something else. Now, those relationships, that predictive outcome thing, you have to be real difficult with that, real careful with that, because it could be the other way. And you can never know for sure if you don't know if there's not a connecting sort of causal agent. And then on the other side, if you come up with something and you think there's something causal to look at, well, you have to figure out, okay, what else might be going on? What are the other things that might be happening? What are the fluctuations of random chance? Because sometimes, chance just gets in the way. And so you have different outcomes that come out of the literature around the topic that you want to look at. But at that point, only at that point, then you can you begin to think about, okay, well, how might I put this experiment together? How might I put this research together? How am I going to organize it? But first, you have to know, what is a sort of an idea to look at, a concept that you need to spend time with, and two, what do you know about it? I mean, is there a literature that thinks you might be causal, or is there literature that thinks it might be predictive, or do we just not know? We just need to figure out better definitions, maybe. Sometimes when you do research, the outcome is better questions. And it's not that you answer a lot of questions, you just create better questions. And so there are lots of different research outcomes. So that first piece, though, that coming up with the idea and coming up with the literature, that is the most difficult piece. Everything else after that flows out of decisions you find in the literature or decisions you've made about whatever the concept is that you're going to research. And the nature of that idea, the nature of that research, and also how do I get organized to collect data that will allow me to move in that direction. But each one of those decisions depends upon the question and the literature. So, second part, which is the part that we're getting ready to embark upon, is the part that has to do, okay, well, let's figure out what are outcomes, what might be ways of collecting data, what am I going to do with that data when I get it, and begin to, those kind of interact a little bit too, but we'll talk about more of that later. But right now we need to move forward. Sometimes you're unsettled on a question. And, my best advice in most of those cases, once you get enough literature, just, pick a direction. There is no perfectly right question to look at, or there is no perfectly complete research. They're all imperfect models. And so, you just have to start. A lot of it is just start. So that's where we're going. I've started putting up information already up on As You Learn. I added a whole new section there. And I'm going to also do a help session of sorts like this every Monday night for a little while. We're going to tonight, and then the 26th, and then the 2nd, 9th, and 16th of next month. I think that's right. Is that the way it works? Yeah, 2nd, 9th, and 16th. Maybe I should look at a calendar first. Yeah, that's right. Okay. So, that'll kind of be a standing offer. It does not require, you don't have to be here. I will always record these, put them back up. If you have particular questions, it might be a good place to ask those. And also, if you would prefer a one-on-one, that's fine. We'll schedule a one-on-one. And I've done a few of those already, but certainly will do anyone that wants to put one of those together. The next kind of due date for something, which will be a draft, and you'll have a lot more information. The prospectus outline is already up, but I will also put I need to clean up the rubric a little bit. I'll put the rubric up that goes along with it, so you'll know all the different pieces. Plus, I put up a folder that has 3 or 4 examples of sort of instructional research stuff that I've had different classes produced over the years. And they're just random samples. They're not, here are the 10 best things I've ever seen. But there are 3 or 4 so that you can kind of get an idea of what your expectations are. So, what are your questions? What do we do next? Any comments? Any questions?
Oh, I'll ask a question.
Yeah.
I don't mind. With the prospectus, is that like, I know we'll be turning it in a draft format, but is that the final project for this class? Because I was looking at it a little bit earlier. Okay. Because I know you said you would do sessions through November 16th. So I wasn't sure when the final, like the rough draft will be due at a certain time for feedback. And then when everything's due, is it due before Thanksgiving? Because I know with the semester, not sure when it would be ending. So I'm not sure if you know that yet.
My thought is that November 8th is like the next draft piece. And, I'll flip that around. I'll flip that around pretty quickly. I think that's a Sunday night and it's not like I'm going anywhere. So then my next thought is to give you, a couple of options there. One is, I'm thinking that maybe if we could get that flipped around and the last, what is the last date there? Last day of classes is the 24th, I think, November 24th. And that would be the next due date. Of course, anything earlier is fine. And that would be the last thing that I would do feedback. So you get 2 big rounds of feedback now. Now, the one on what I always tell people when we get to that next to the last draft is if that meets the rubric, then you don't have to, even if it's got, a few flaws in it, I'll note those and give it back to you and tell you, well, okay, you met the class rubric. I'm sorry. Down here in the mountains, and every now and then something strange floats across in front of my face in the camera. So if I just start swatting at stuff, it's really not, early onset or anything. It's just flies. But if there are more substantial elements, then I'll allow another rewrite, and I think that would have to be done by well, I have to look that up. It's either December 3rd or 7th. But that's kind of where we'll go with the drafts coming forward. Now, what I will do on the, let me get those dates down so I know I got them, 24th. And then I'll have to look. I think it's the 3rd, but might be the 7th. I'll have to look at the timeline there. The way I'll use those Mondays is that starting with next Monday, I'll deal with any questions you have and provide as many answers as possible. And then we'll introduce a bit more of a structured talking to different research methodologies, different research modes. We're going to look primarily at 3, quantitative, qualitative, and a limited qualitative, limited quantitative. and a very limited mixed methodology. And I'll treat each of those as separate methodologies with separate sort of characteristics and outcome and requirements for researchers. But and I'll reiterate this all the way along, you have to remember all three of those things are really just shades of gray around that empirical model that I shared up with you. I guess it's up on As You Learn, maybe a couple of sessions ago. But yeah, there are three basic sort of divisions. There are all kinds of little subdivisions and thematic differences and nuances between different ways of doing qualitative and different ways of doing quantitative. And so there's a lot of variation there that we won't necessarily get into, because this is not designed to be the one research methods class that you're going to have before you crank out some large research study. There'll be, particularly if you go into the doc program or wherever, you're always going to have to deal with quantitative and qualitative both at some level. And that's why I really prefer people, if they're going to focus in some area, focus on mixed methods, and that way you get enough quantitative, you get enough qualitative, and you can also see how all that can kind of fit together. But so the Mondays will be, we'll start, and then I think, what did I say, there are 4 of them. Yeah, there are 4 Mondays. We'll start each one with questions about where you are with drafts. And then we'll fold into one of the methodologies. And somewhere in there, I'll have to have you take a look at I'm going to do this as a video as opposed to a Zoom session. The new stuff and all the latest stuff on research protections and, what you have to be aware of, and, the latest sort of changes in the federal codes and the state codes and things like that. But instead of doing that as a session, I'm just going to do that as a video. And then if you have questions or whatever, we'll deal with them in one of these sessions. So there's where I thought I would take it. I know we had talked about doing async. This is just not going to be a class, I don't think, that can be done totally async. And so, but if you have other things that get in the way and you can't come, at least make sure that you get a look at the video and make sure you kind of know what you want to know. Other questions? Okay. Yeah. Yes. Somebody?
Yeah. Hey. Hello. I have a question. So for this next assignment, our draft, do you need data?
No.
Or
no.
Okay. So just
well,
talk about how you're going to collect data. Or
let me draw back on that just a touch. You need only data in so much as it helps you to define and make the case for the research question.
Okay.
In other words, if you're saying, I want to look at this particular advising technique or this particular distance learning instructional technique, because it's something we need to do. Well, yeah, okay. Why do you need to do it? What is the what's the rationale for looking at that question? Okay. And if data helps that, a little bit of descriptive or general data, then that's fine. But no, we're not collecting data for this research project.
Okay.
Yeah, some of the examples I gave you had a little data in them, and but that's earlier iteration of the course in which we didn't worry too as much about the lit reviews and things like that. So, but now we're wanting the question is really the thing. How do you get to that question, and how do you support it? Okay. And then we'll do enough of the methods to kind of get you past that.
Okay, I was just making sure. 'Cause
Yeah.
I-
No, you're not collecting data.
I'm like, oh my God. Okay.
No.
All right. Thank you.
We'd be a little late, I think, if we were getting into that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So.
I just,
Mhm.
hi, Dr. Bolt. I just wanted to clarify. So if our project will look similar to what the examples that you gave.
Yeah, a little bit more rigorous because we've wanted to pick up the writing just a little bit better. And
Okay.
so, yeah, very similar though, but in
Okay.
terms of form and flow and all that, but a little bit more detail in, but we'll kind of get all that on the rubric.
Okay. And so to, as if we follow the structure of the research prospectus,
Mhm.
then that if we follow those, that outline, that should give us the end result that you're looking for. Is
Yeah,
that
it'll be
correct?
fine. Yeah, and plus you'll get, by the time that last one comes in, you'll have, two fairly healthy rounds of feedback.
Okay.
You should be. But it is, at this point, it is a bit of a writing process, that's the thing. And the program is getting really hyped up on, and I say that sounds like a bad thing, but it's not. The program is getting, quite serious about upping the writing, caliber of the writing a little bit, and putting just a little bit more rigor on it so that, you kind of know what, folks in higher ed would expect to see out of a written piece of work.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, Dr. Bolt, do you have an idea of how many pages you're looking for the final product to be?
I knew that question would come. My stock answer is it's not the quantity, it's the quality and the way it's done. I do like things to be fairly concise, but the actual practical answer that I suspect you're looking for is that if you look at the examples, they're 15, 20 pages, something like that. Some of that's eat up with formatting. You got title page and table of contents, things like that. So you're formatting it like a manuscript. It may go north of 20, but a lot of that might be the formatting pieces.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, if you're going to get in academia, you really need to understand that it's not. It's most of the time it's not okay. How quickly can I get this in? It's more like, all right, I got all this stuff I want to say. How can I make it concise and compress it into something that somebody will read and make sense out of? You take your, I don't know, 50,000 word or whatever dissertation, and you want to turn it into an article. All right, articles are anywhere from 3 to 8 or 10,000 words. And so you got to take that 50,000 and get it down to 3 or 4,000. So it is a process of not only learning how to get a coherent thought across, but also, just kind of understanding how to get coherent thoughts across in as concise a manner as possible.
That makes sense. Thanks.
All right. Well, I'm going to, as I put up a bit more detail about the project in terms of the rubric, I'm also going to put up a video kind of introduction to each of the research methodologies. And so simply because it's the easiest methodology to understand and the easiest one to lay the logic out for, we're going to start with quantitative. So there'll be a quantitative video up, and I'll make some references to the sources I put up so that you can kind of get a little pre-read thing going. We're going to pull out some pieces out of Cresswell. And so, Cresswell's real good on methodology. He's real good on he's a little bit better on the qualitative stuff and the mixed method stuff. So we'll, pull in some other sources on the quantitative stuff. Trocum's online knowledge base, the online text he maintains, that's a very good source. And he's one of those guys that has the ability to think theoretically and conceptually, and at the same time make it sound interesting. And so his writing is once again, very concise and very to the point. So we'll pull together, reference some Trocum pieces along with Cresswell pieces and some of the other stuff, and I'll fit it around a video. So it'll kind of be like a I don't know, 45-minute lecture that you don't have to sleep halfway through. You can split it up into 3 15-minute lectures, or you can watch the first 15 minutes and decide not to watch the rest of it, whatever. But it'll be there, so that's up to you. And I'll do the same thing on the qualitative piece. I promise I will give equal time to qualitative research, and I will spend some time on the qualitative side of it. Same thing, resources, video, the whole thing, and mixed methods also. And I come back again, if you need a one-to-one, Zoom to Zoom, whatever, you need to let me know, and we'll schedule that together. Now that I know that if we come down here, I can work. This is distance learning at its epitome. We're spending a few days in a friend's cabin down in the Waynesville area and on the edge of the Smokies. So nice and quiet, and we're having a real tough time figuring out why we should leave. But I guess they have other people coming in on Friday, so I think we have to get out of here, but whatever. But it's, it's one of those deals. Okay, other questions, other things? I mean, I know sometimes people have a little hesitancy to ask the specific thing they want to ask, or, they don't want to sound foolish, stupid, or whatever. Trust me, that comes with the territory. I've majored in that over the years. But, email me, send me, call me, you have my cell number, I think, on, yo.
Dr. Bold, I just wanted to tell you, I know I was having some mute problems talking about the technical questions no one wants to ask. I just wanted to thank you for giving us a little more structure on this. I'm just speaking for me. It helps to have a little bit of face-to-face.
Yeah, and I think that's why we need to meet all of these Mondays. And if you want more face-to-face, personally, that's fine too. Yeah. And we'll stick around as long as you have, questions, or, I can help you figure out the different methodological pieces and things like that. It's entirely up to you as to how much you want to be here. I mean, I have to go home at the end of the week and then do it out of my den, but I'll still do there. I'll still be there. Other thoughts, questions, gripes, complaints? Not sure I can fix them all, but at least you will have had the opportunity to vent it. Venting's good these days. Really good. So it's sitting in the mountains for a week. That's really good too. All right, folks. I'm going to cut this thing off then, and I'll let you go. I'm going to put this little recording up so people will know kind of where we're going. Look for the webpage changes to begin to multiply. There's a whole series of stuff in there. You don't necessarily need to bore right through all that right away. We're going to pull it in over that 3-week period. So Okay.
And Dr. Bolt, is it still going to be 7 o'clock every Monday, or is the time gonna
I suppose we
change?
could do 6. I think initially, the reason I picked 7, I think initially you had, um, the class was originally scheduled on Monday. This is a weird story, but so you can't, I'm not even going to, but basically the reason we went to an async is because I had another class that I had to meet on Mondays. And so, Andrew had said, can you do it async? I said, sure. It's not my best idea, but we'll give it a whirl. And then as it turned out, the other class that I had scheduled on Mondays ended up being scheduled on Tuesdays because somebody else wanted to teach the Monday instead of the Tuesday. And so it ended up Monday was wide open after all. But anyhow, we'll try to remediate that as much as we can over the next 4 weeks or so.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay. All right, Mitch, send me an email. And is Mitch still here?
I just have a
You're right in the
question.
middle. I missed you. You're right in the middle.
Oh, sorry.
I'm here.
Yeah, if you need to, once again, if you, both of you, if you need to do a one-on-one, just send me an email and let me know when you can do it. I say we're just kind of sitting around down here this week trying to work on a few things and get somebody ready for a dissertation. So, pretty much wide open. Just let me know what works and I'll see how I can fit it in.
Okay, I'll shoot you an email. Thank you very much, sir.
Same for you, Charmin.
Thank you, Dr. Boat.
Okay. Other thoughts, questions?
No, I'll shoot you an email and ask you, because I have a whole world of stuff to ask you about
Okay,
mine,
that's fine.
but it's fine. Enjoy it. I'm in Asheville, so you're right down the road. Practically.
Right down the road,
It's
yeah.
beautiful.
Except
Beautiful
traffic,
foliage this year.
the traffic's just slightly less up here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, the
Well,
roads are slightly thinner too, but that's okay.
Oh yeah. Well, go get lost in nowhere and enjoy it. It's beautiful.
Okay.
Thank you
All right,
so much.
folks, we good for the time being? Okay. I'm gonna cut the recording off and I'm gonna kind of go dark. I think somebody's gonna had some particular questions they wanted to ask and they were coming in about 7, well, they said about 7:30, so I'll hang on a little bit longer, but I'm gonna cut the recorder off and step away from the computer so I can, get something, some water to kind of, my throat's getting scratchy with all the various wildlife things up here. So, okay. All right.